जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। श्रील रूप गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। Thank you once again, dear devotees, for kindly assembling here once more in our weekly talk on Srila Rupa Goswami's Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam. I am very thankful to each and every one of you who have kindly become a part of this journey and who have kindly ensured that all of us successfully reach till this point in Srila Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamritam, and especially Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu is our host who has kindly been hosting all these sessions. I'm very grateful to him for kindly being here and kindly answering all the queries whenever I ask him. Thank you very much to all of you, like-minded devotees, for kindly being here. Let us begin, dear devotees. Today is session 55th of our series of talks on Srila Rupa Goswami's Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam. We are discussing the penultimate verse, the 10th verse. And before we begin, I'd like to offer Shanti pathah, or a Vedic prayer to ensure auspiciousness for the teacher as well as the student. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sahana Bhavatu. May Bhagwan protect both of us, teacher as well as student. Sahana Bhunaktu. May Bhagwan bestow the highest fruit of the study upon both of us. Sahaviryam Karavavahi. May both of us attain the strength to realize the highest truth. Tejasvi Navadhitamastu. May our study shine forth brilliantly. Ma Vidvishavahai. May we never envy each other. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. May there be peace in the three worlds. The devotees will also glorify Sri Rupa Goswami through a freshly composed verse. This verse is in front of us. त्यक्तो बन्धुभिरुत्कट प्रकृतिभिर् नैकाग्रहै पीडिता कुख्यातो जगति तलेति विकला कामादि दुर्वृत्तिभिः सन्नीतोऽत्यवमाननां खलजनैर् बद्धश्च पाशैकले सर्वोपाय निराकृतः शिवकृते श्रीरूपमेव श्रये. Given up by harsh nature relatives, troubled by various malefic astrological planets, completely ill-reputed in the world, extremely harassed by evil tendencies such as lust, etc., thoroughly disregarded by ruffians, firmly caught in the grips of Kali Yuga, and completely failed in all possible ways, I now take exclusive shelter of Sri Rupa Goswami for attaining auspiciousness. Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Dear devotees, we are continuing the 10th, the second last, the penultimate instruction, and this instruction is in front of us. Karmibhyah parito harehi priyataya vyaktim yayur jnaninas tebhyo jnana vimukta bhakti paramah premaikaniष्ठास्ततः तेभ्यस्तः पशुपाल पंकजदृशस्ताभ्योऽपि साराधिका प्रेष्ठा तद्वदीयं तदीय सरसि ताम नाश्रयेत कह कृति. So, Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, I would request you to read the anvaya of this particular verse.
Yes, sir. As compared to karmis, the jnanis are clearly expressed in Shastra as being dear to Hari in all respects. Dearer than the jnanis are those who have risen above jnana and who consider bhakti to be the topmost process. Dearer than them are those fixed exclusively in Krishna prema. Dearer than them are the lotus-eyed cowherd girls of Vraja. Even amongst them, the dearmost is Sri Radhika, who has the greatest essence of prema. This kunda belonging to her is similarly dearmost to Krishna. Which fortunate soul will not take shelter of Sri Radha Kunda?
Thank you, Prabhuji. So, dear devotees, in this particular verse, we have reached a point where we have seen how karmis are definitely great, because those who are following the Vedic system, those who are following Varnashram and performing their karma according to the Vedic rules, they are certainly greater than those who are atheistic in nature. Greater than them are the jnanis who are searching for the impersonal Brahman, although the impersonal Brahman is everywhere. And last time we have reached a point where we have seen how a particular person, although may have attained liberation through jnana, but still gives up the process of jnana, jnane prayasamudapasya, and then takes mainly to the process of bhakti. Dear devotees, we have reached this particular point. Now we are moving from this point ahead. We know that dear to Krishna are the Sakama Karmis because they are following the Vedas. Dearer are the Jnanis, and dearer than the Jnanis are Jnana, Vimukta, Bhakti, paramah. What is the meaning of Jnana, Vimukta, Bhakti, paramah? The meaning is Jnana, Vimukta. There are two meanings. Either through Jnana they have become liberated. Another meaning, they have become liberated from the process of Jnana. They have given up the process of Jnana. And Bhakti, paramah. They have taken to Bhakti as paramah, as their primary process. Shri Radharaman Das Goswami, the commentator on Śrī-Upadeśāmṛtam, says Bhakti Paramah means Bhakti Pradhana. Those who now have Bhakti as the primary influence in their lives. So they have given up Gyan, but they have not become Bhakti Ekantina. They have not become one-pointed as of yet in Bhakti. Bhakti Paramah. They have Bhakti as the Parama, primary influence in their lives. But still some traces of Gyan are remaining in them. Because there is something called as Parama and then there is something called as Gauna. What is primary and what is secondary. So there are some Gyanis who have given up the process of Gyan and who have taken exclusively to the process of Bhakti now as their main process of advancement. But traces of Gyan are lingering within their heart. They now accept that Bhagwan is the ultimate truth, that the personal form of Bhagwan is the ultimate truth, that they should have a loving relationship with Bhagwan. But there are some impressions of Gyan which are remaining in them. What are these impressions? What exactly is the result of having these impressions? We will try to explore today, dear devotees. Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his introduction to his Sararth Varshini commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Bhakti stu dvividha. Actually, bhakti is of two types. What are the two types of bhakti? Kevala. Kevala means unmixed, unalloyed. which is not mixed with any other tendency for karma, jnana, ashtanga yoga, etc. What Sri Rupa Goswami calls Uttama Bhakti in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And the second is Pradhani Bhuta. Pradhani Bhuta means mixed or alloyed with karma or jnana. But Pradhani Bhuta, in this mixture, Bhakti is the prominent factor and karma and jnana are secondary factors. So dear devotees, what Sri Rupa Goswami is saying, jnana vimukta bhakti paramah, is nothing but he is speaking about those devotees who are performing Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti. Means they have Bhakti as the prominent element of their sadhana. But still there are traces of Gyan lingering within their hearts. So this is what is the correct understanding of the term Jnana Vimukta Bhakti Parama. Otherwise, Sri Rupa Goswami, instead of saying Bhakti Parama, would have said that Bhakti Ekashritaha, means they are sheltered exclusively in Bhakti. But he said Bhakti Parama. Bhakti is their primary process. When he says primary process, obviously there are traces of a secondary process in the background. So we have to see what is the meaning of having Gyan as secondary influence in one's practice. Dear devotees, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur then in his commentary on the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita explains in some detail what is the result attained by those whose bhakti is not kevala, whose bhakti is not uttama, whose bhakti is not unalloyed. What will be their result? Because many of us are practicing bhakti, but within our hearts there are desires for sense enjoyment. Although these desires are wholesome desires, they are not, desires to commit murder, or they are not desires to steal from somebody, etc. They are tiny desires, wholesome desires, but still there are material desires. So what is the result attained by those individuals who have bhakti, but which is mixed with karma? Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Sakama bhaktayas tasam phalam tat kama prakti. The result of bhakti mixed with tinges of material desires. Please note I have translated very carefully. Bhakti is prominent, material desires are secondary. They arise from time to time, but the devotee knows bhakti is the main process of advancement of my life. So the result of bhakti mixed with tinges of material desires is attainment of those respective desires. Now, how does a devotee attain? Obviously, the devotee attains by attaining higher planets such as Swarga, etc. Now, dear devotees, when we hear of Swarga, heavenly planets, some of us become alarmed. Why? Because we have heard that from Swargaloka, something happens. Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, what happens after Swargaloka?
When your merit is exhausted, you fall down into the earthly plane.
Yes. So whenever we hear about Swarga, our heart is always having this little splinter which says after the exhaustion of our piety, we'll have to come back again here. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, don't worry. Your desires are wholesome desires. Vishaya sadgunyat. Since such desires are usually wholesome, tadante, the devotee mixed with material desires enjoys himself, and at the end of his desires, Sukhaishwarya Pradhana Salokya Moksha Praptis. He attains Salokya Mukti. And this liberation is replete with Sukha Aishwarya, divine joys and opulences. So, dear devotees, those of us who are progressing upwards, please know that in most cases, you will not have to return back. This is very assuring news for those devotees who have bhakti as their predominant process and karma or material desires lingering in the background. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur again emphasizes, na tu karma phala swarga bhoganta iva pathah. Such a devotee doesn't fall from swarga like other Vedic karmis who fall from swarga after exhaustion of their heavenly piety. So dear devotees, whenever we hear descriptions about swarga, that you go there, kshine punya marte lokam vishanti, that after their merit is exhausted, they come back. That is for the Vedic karmis, not for you devotees who have devotional service as your primary means of advancement. But maybe some of you may be having some material desires lurking in the background. Even if you attain heaven, Swarga, mostly you will progress and attain Krama Mukti. And I have explained previously what is Krama Mukti, gradual liberation. But please note, you will attain Salokya Moksha in that case. Salokya Moksha means most likely the attainment will be of a Vaikuntha or of a spiritual world in which there is predominance of happiness and prosperity. So that is what may be the ultimate attainment. Now, what about those whose bhakti is mixed with tinges of jnana? Because the current verse is speaking about them. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Jnana Mishrayas tata Utkrishthayastu phalam Shantaratihi Sanakadishviva. Bhakti mixed with tinges of jnana is certainly superior to bhakti mixed with tinges of karma. Wonderful. The result is direct attainment of Shantaras. You don't have to go planet to planet, planet to planet. Direct attainment. Sadhya Mukti. Just like the attainment of the Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanatan, Sananda, Sanat Kumar. And in many cases, Bhakta Bhagavat Karunyadikya Vashat, where the mercy of a premi devotee or the mercy of Bhagwan excessively manifests itself, such bhakti mixed with tinges of jnana can also lead to prema. Pure bhakti devoid of any tendency of karma or jnana. That is also possible, dear devotees. And this is found in cases such as Shri Shukadev Goswami, etc. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur further says, Kvachitcha, sometimes, Swabhavadeva, such devotees mixed with tinges of karma or jnana, can also attain prema bhakti in dasya, sakhya, rasas, etc. How does this happen? It happens because of Swabhavadeva. Their own devotional inclinations sometimes become powerful. Or sometimes Dasadi Bhakta Sangotha Vasana Vashat. Sometimes by association of one-pointed unalloyed devotees in Dasya Rasa, etc. But even in these cases, final attainment is opulent variety of prema, which is found usually in Vaikuntha. So this is from his commentary to Bhagavad Gita 7.16, dear devotees. So this is the Jnana Vimukta Bhakti Paramah. What is his end result? Either he will attain Shantaras if he doesn't attain the mercy of Bhagwan or any particular Premi Bhakta, or such a devotee may attain Prema in Dasya, Sakya, etc. if they attain the mercy of Bhagwan or a devotee. These are the two destinations of Jnana Vimukta Bhakti Paramah, dear devotees. So this is what is destined for such a person. Now please remember, dear devotees, this person still has traces of Jnana. Originally, many lives ago, this person began on the path of Jnana. What is the path of Jnana? I am fed up with this repeated process of karma. I am fed up with fruitive material desires. Now I wish to understand the absolute truth and I wish to get liberated and end all my suffering. This is the process of Jnana. Ending all my suffering. Dear devotees, this tendency that I want to end all my suffering and I want to attain happiness is so prominent in the living entity that many of us become devotees because of this tendency. Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu Don't you want to go back home, back to Godhead?
Yes, Prabhuji, get me out of this miserable material world. I hate it.
So, Prabhu, if you fail to go back to Godhead in this life, won't you be disappointed?
Yes, I don't want to take birth again.
When this desire to end suffering and this desire to attain eternal happiness is present in an individual, this desire is extremely strong rooted in the living entity. And because of this desire, the person becomes jnani, and this desire also stays as long as the person has tendencies of jnana within him or her. This desire for personal happiness is not at all incorrect. It is a valid desire. Dear devotees, when people tell us, sometimes devotees give, lofty uh, lectures, and where they say you should have no desires in your heart. You should have no desires for personal happiness. Although it sounds lofty from a platform, in actuality, dear devotees, most individuals have desires for personal happiness, even if they want that happiness through liberation. Sri Jiva Goswami in the beginning of Priti Sandarbha says, Purusha prayojanam tavat sukha praptir dukha nivrittischa. The ultimate goal of humans in general is to attain happiness and to get rid of all distress. There is no escaping this fact. The living entity is made in this way that the living entity always seeks pleasure, and one's own pleasure is primary. This is the reason why Srila Prabhupada often called it paramah gati, that actually we want to attain the highest selfishness for ourselves. And what is the highest selfishness for ourselves? That we attain eternal happiness and we get rid of all distress. Often Srila Prabhupada would also say, best is to save yourself. Best is to save yourself first. Because if you save yourself, you will attain the prayojan, which is the final goal, that is attaining happiness and to get rid of all distress. Dear devotees, this desire is so deep rooted that often many sadhus and saints say that this is the reason why you should aim for liberation. There is a very famous saintly commentator on the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam in Maharashtra, India. His name was Sri Ekanath. He, in his commentary to the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he wrote as follows. Stri sambhogi je hoye sukha, te sukha muktansi sada dekha. त्यालागी स्त्री काम अभिलाख नाही विशेष मुक्तांसी. Stri sambhogi je hoy sukha. The momentary pleasure of enjoying sex with a woman, te sukha muktamsi sada dekha, is enjoyed constantly by those who are liberated from this world. Tyalagi stri kama abhilakha nahi vishesha muktansi. Therefore, liberated souls have no specific attachment to enjoying women. Dear devotees, he is saying here that the greatest pleasure that is available in the material world is constantly available to those who are liberated. Therefore, the indication is that you should all aim for attaining liberation. Dear devotees, the Bhagavatam also on many occasions seems to point in that direction, especially the 11th canto has traces of Jnana Yoga in it. And in those sections, when he comments, he specifies this in his commentary. Dear devotees, is there anything wrong with seeking personal happiness? What is wrong in seeking personal happiness? It is such a fundamental part of the existence of the living entity that the Upanishads, the Vedic literature, they grant sanction to it. In Brihad Aranyak Upanishad, the famous Vedic sage Yajnavalkya is speaking to his wife Maitreyi. Maitreyi is Brahmavadini. She is a Vedic Rishi. She understands the Vedas, but she wants to understand some truths from Yajnavalkya. Yajnavalkya says something to Maitreyi. Dear devotees, please hear carefully. Yajnavalkya says, Navare patyuh kamaya patih priyo bhavati. Atmanastu kamaya patih priyo bhavati. Maitreyi, it is not for the sake of the husband's pleasure that he is loved, but it is for the pleasure of the self that he is loved by the wife. Why does a wife love the husband? Because she loves the husband or because she loves herself? Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, what is the reason?
She loves herself, and loving him fulfills certain needs for her.
Wonderful. So, Yajnavalkya says, a wife loves her husband because she loves herself. First and foremost, she loves herself. And because she wants to love herself, therefore she loves her husband. And now he doesn't restrict it only to wives. In the next statement, he says, Navare jayaya kamaya jaya priya bhavati. Atmanastu kamaya jaya priya bhavati. Maitreyi, it is not for the sake of the wife's pleasure that she is loved, but it is for the pleasure of the self that she is loved by the husband. So why does a husband love the wife, Maitreyi? A husband loves his wife because he loves his own self, his soul. Therefore, he loves his wife. Further, Yajnavalkya says, Navare putranam kamaya putraha priya bhavanti. Atmanastu kamaya putraha priya bhavanti. Maitreyi, it is not for the sake of the children's pleasure that they are loved. No, no, no. Why do people love their children? Because parents love themselves. Therefore, they love their children. They find their happiness in the happiness of the children. And because their happiness comes first, therefore they seek children's happiness. Dear devotees, this is what Maitreyi and Yajnavalkya are discussing. Finally, after a few sentences, Sri Yajnavalkya says, Navare sarvasya kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. It is not for the sake of everything that everything is loved, but it is for the pleasure of the self that everything is loved by an individual. Why do we love anything in this world? We love anything or anyone in this world because we love ourselves the most. We want to please ourselves the most. This self-centeredness is a core aspect of the existence of the living entity. Dear devotees, it is a Vedic truth, an Upanishadic truth. And no matter how much we try to artificially deny it, we will never be able to truly live up to it. Because at the end of the day, we love everything because we love ourselves. This is the clear fact as specified by the Upanishads. Sri Shankaracharya, while commenting on this section of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, says, Tasmat loka prasiddham etat. It is clearly established in the world. What? Atma iva priya nanyat. Nothing besides the self is dearmost to an individual. Tasmad atma pritir sadhanatvad gauni anyatra priti. Thus, love for all other objects or people in this world is secondary, because such love is only an instrument for attaining self-love. self-pleasure, self-love. That is what is the viewpoint of the Upanishads, the viewpoint of the Gyanis. I love everything because I love myself. I am researching after the impersonal Brahman because I love myself. I want happiness for myself. And therefore, I love this process of jnana. This, dear devotees, is validated by the Upanishads. And when the jnani hears statements like these, the jnani becomes firmly convinced that my pleasure is the most important thing to seek in this world. And that pleasure will be attained by understanding the impersonal Brahman and merging into it. Even after a jnani gives up his jnana and becomes attracted to bhakti, these tendencies sometimes remain in the devotee. Dear devotees, many of us became devotees because we wanted to go back home, back to Godhead. We were given a promise. You will go back home, back to Godhead. And you will attain happiness. And along with Krishna, there will be no distress. And you will live happily ever after. And this is the reason why many of us are practicing our bhajan. That we want to attain success. Failure means to take another birth. And if we take another birth, we have to go through all those problems again. Who wants to go through them? Better make your life successful. Go back to Godhead in this very life. Nobody wants to fail. This is the tendency for liberation. In all this talk that I just spoke, everything is centered around one's personal happiness. Everything is centered around one's self-happiness. The living entity, therefore, has only two avenues to explore this self-centered happiness. Either the living entity tries for material pleasures in this world, which is called as bhukti, or either the living entity tries for the ultimate happiness, which is called as liberation or mukti. These are the two sources of self-centered happiness available for the living entity. And therefore, most living entities are struggling for these two. Even after a jnani gives up jnana, the tendency for liberation or mukti remains. And therefore, many devotees say, I want to go back to Godhead in this life. Prabhu, please pray for me so that I can attain success in this very life. Dhāmeśvara Prabhu, next time you go to Vrindavan, please pray for me so that in this very life I can attain the lotus feet of Krishna. Go back to Godhead and make my life successful and escape the material world and all its miseries. And happy birthday to you. May you never take birth again. Happy birthday to you. It is there in all aspects of our devotional existence. The tendency for liberation, mukti. Therefore, jnana vimukta, we are freed from the process of jnana. Bhakti paramah, bhakti has become primary, but still traces of jnana lingering in the background. Now, dear devotees, Sri Krishna also has an attitude towards such individuals who have given up jnana, who have taken to bhakti, not fully given up, jnana. Some traces are remaining. Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajamya. Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, what is the meaning of this particular phrase?
Krishna is saying that in whatever particular way people approach him, he will reciprocate accordingly.
Correct. Ye yatha mam prapadyante. Prapadyante means as individuals surrender, as individuals worship me. Tams tathaiva bhajami. Actually, literally bhajami means I also worship them. So as people worship me, as people surrender to me, I also worship and I also reciprocate with them accordingly. Sounds like a business arrangement. Does Bhagwan really want this sort of a business arrangement with the jivas? This is what is to be understood. Was Bhagwan speaking the innermost core of his heart when he made this statement? That as people surrender to me, I reciprocate with them accordingly. Was Bhagwan really speaking the innermost core of his heart when he said this? The answer is no. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, in front of his most confidential devotees, the gopis, Bhagwan speaks his heart. In fact, they force Bhagwan to speak his heart. And in front of the gopis, Bhagwan says, Mitho bhajanti ye sakhya swarthai kantodyamahite. Those who love only on being loved are devoted one-pointedly to selfishness. That you scratch my back and I will scratch your back. And as much as you scratch my back, accordingly I will scratch your back. What sort of bhakti is this? Swartha ekanta udyama. This is one-pointed selfishness, nothing else. When Krishna made that statement in the Bhagavad Gita, he was also speaking of that one-pointed selfishness, although he did not make it clear to Arjuna. But in front of the gopis, Krishna made it clear that this is nothing but self-centeredness. But what is wrong with self-centeredness? Krishna, aren't you self-centered? Krishna, aren't you the one who always desires eko ham bahusyam in the Upanishads? I am alone. I want to multiply. Who has desires for self-happiness? And we are part and parcels of yours. If we have desires for self-happiness, what is wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that, dear devotees. Nothing wrong with that. Jnana vimukta bhakti paramah. Bhakti is the primary driving force of your lives. Nothing wrong in that. Nothing wrong in the desire to say that I am practicing bhakti because I want to get rid of the material world and attain happiness by going back home, back to Godhead. Nothing wrong in saying that. But please note that somewhere Bhagwan says that this is not the highest motivation of an individual. Now, some individuals may say, well, we can't perceive of anything higher than this. We need our pleasure. No worries. Your motivation is excellent. And if bhakti is the main process of your spiritual life, you are situated on the correct path. Even if you have desires for liberation, no problem. But please know that there is something higher than this. Sri Rupa Goswami reminds us of the two happinesses for a jiva, bhukti and mukti, material joy and liberation. And Sri Rupa Goswami says, Bhukti mukti spriha yavat pishachi hridi vartate tavad bhakti sukhasyatra kathamabhyudayo bhavet. Yavat, as long as bhukti mukti spriha pishachi hridi vartate, as the witch-like desires for bhukti, material pleasures, and mukti, liberation from matter, have their grips over the heart of a sadhaka. Tavad bhakti sukhasya atra katham abhyudayo bhavit. How can the true happiness of bhakti ever make an appearance in that heart? Dear devotees, this desire for going back to Godhead in this very life, this desire that I want to make my life successful by escaping the clutches of Maya, this desire gives us more pains than we could have ever imagined. everything that we do becomes riddled with fear, like a ghost on us. If I don't wake up early in the morning, what will happen? Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu. If tomorrow I don't wake up for Mangal Arati, what will happen?
You'll fall down into Maya and take birth again.
Oh
for
my
sure.
goodness. Oh my goodness. And Prabhu, what will happen if I fail to chant my rounds on a particular day?
You'll be an offender, Prabhuji. Take many, many births.
My goodness. So this desire for liberation is dancing on my head like a witch. And because of this, I am not able to experience Bhakti Sukha. What is the actual joy of Bhakti? If you have seen a person who's haunted, I have seen one. There was a person who got haunted by a ghost when he was a young child. I have seen in my life. He used to have this haunted face, similar to the one shown in the painting. People used to try and make him happy, joke around him, but he wouldn't laugh. They would feed him whatever, they thought would be pleasurable to him, but no reactions, just sitting there. The ghost derives all the nourishment, and this particular person is sad, haunted. This is what happens to the devotee who is haunted by the witch of liberation. That desire, oh, I want to go back to God, oh, my ticket for eternal happiness should not get cancelled. What can I do? One parikrama of Vrindavan, one parikrama of Mayapur, one parikrama of Jagannath Puri, and some shastra says I will go back home, back to Godhead. Let me do this, let me do that. So many rounds I will chant in my life. Then finally Krishna will give me a ticket. And what if Krishna doesn't give a ticket? What if Bhagwan doesn't open the gates for us? Oh, then that will be terrible. Better than that, then let me enjoy myself in this world. Many people will have this thought. If I cannot go back home, back to Godhead. Dhāmeśvara Mahaprabhu. If Bhagwan comes and says, the gates of liberation are closed for you, sorry. What will most of us think?
And make the best use of a bad bargain. Let's enjoy this material world.
Wonderful. Let's enjoy the material world as much as possible without incurring sinful reactions. So, we will switch back to karma. Karma, jnana. Karma, jnana. If jnana is frustrated, karma. After a few births, karma is frustrated, jnana. After a few births, jnana is frustrated, karma. And after a few births, karma is frustrated, again jnana. So what do we do? Actually, one of the greatest benedictions that Bhagwan has ever done, has ever given to a devotee, is found in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Vyasadeva himself is dissatisfied with everything that he wrote, including the Vedanta Sutras, where the Gyan was delineated as the topmost process. After being thoroughly dissatisfied, Sri Narad Muni comes to him and then narrates the first history. And in this history, there is a big disappointment because Bhagwan says something to Narad Muni. Hantasmin janmani bhavan mamam drashtum iharhati avipakva kashayanam durdarshoham kuyoginam. Hanta, alas, O Narad, Asmin janmani bhavan ma mam drashtumi harhati. I regret that during this lifetime you are ineligible to get a vision of me. Durdarshoham. I am very difficult to be seen by immature yogis whose sins have not been completely eradicated. Imagine leaving your home, going to the forest, meditating on Bhagwan, leaving everything behind. And then Bhagwan has a message of disappointment for you. Bhagwan comes and breaks your heart and says, sorry, better luck next time. It is at this point of time, dear devotees, that we are forced to think about our original motivations for coming to the path of bhakti. Why did we come to this path? For most of us, we came to this path because we wanted personal happiness. But incidents like these make us think, is there something beyond this? The answer is yes. And the answer is to give up that hankering for personal happiness of liberation. Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, can you say behind me? And all of you say, although you are muted, kindly say behind me. Dear Krishna,
Dear Krishna,
I do not want to go back home, back to Godhead.
I do not want to go back home, back to Godhead.
It's a very heavy statement to make. But if Krishna says tathastu, all right, let it be so. We should not be disappointed. Bhakti was never about you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. It was never about self-centeredness. Dear devotees, Srila Sridhar Swami in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam says, Mokshabhisandhirapi nirastaha. The desire for liberation has also been discarded at the very beginning of this literature named Srimad Bhagavatam. Where in the beginning? When Narad Muni fails to attain liberation in that previous life of his. And then Narad Muni still continues to give to Bhagwan. In actuality, bhakti is about continuing to love Bhagwan irrespective of whether Bhagwan can give us liberation or not. Irrespective of what Bhagwan can give to us. Bhakti is about continually giving to Bhagwan, and that in itself is the highest happiness of such a premi bhakta like Shri Narad. Sri Rupa Goswami therefore says that there are many people who attain liberation. They go to Vaikuntha, spiritual world. But of all those people who go to the spiritual world, there are two types, two main types. Sukhaishwaryottaraseya Prema-sevottarā Salokyadirvidha tatra Nadya seva jushammata. Vidha, liberation is of two types. Sukha Aishwarya Uttara. That liberation in which self, joy and opulence are most desired by the sadhaka. And second, Prema Seva Uttara. That in which unalloyed Prema and Seva are most desired by the sadhaka. Except Sayujya, which is liberation by merging, all other four liberations can be categorized in these two types. However, those who delight exclusively in unconditional seva do not prefer the first type of liberation. Although the first type is also liberation. You can get liberated and go back home, back to Godhead in the Sukha Aishwarya Uttara variation of liberation, in which self-joy was most prominent, in which self-opulence was most prominent. This is also liberation. Therefore, I said it's a very good desire to have, that I will go back to Godhead and end all my miseries. But above that are those who have stopped taking favors from Bhagwan and now are instead rendering favors unto Bhagwan. Dear devotees, those who have absolute zero expectations from Bhagwan. Bhagwan, now you can do whatever you wish to do. Bhagwan may say, you are willing to take another birth? Surely. Bhagwan may say, you are willing to go through that learning A for apple, B for bat, C for cat, and D for dog again in the school. That's all right. Bhagwan said, maybe you may not attain a human body, you may become a bird or an animal. That's all right. I just want one thing. What do you want? Prema and seva. Let me have love for you. Let me have the desire to please you. And let me have the desire to serve you. It is at this point of time, dear devotees, that Bhagwan becomes dumbfounded as to what I can do to such an individual. Bhagwan has no answer. Because previously he used to say, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. As you surrender, I will reciprocate. But now there is nothing to reciprocate because I am not asking for anything, Bhagwan. What is the highest that you had to offer to me? Liberation? I reject. I say no. I do not need it. I do not need it. I need prema. Now, Bhagwan, what do you have to say? Bhagwan will say, I do not have my own prema. My prema is stored with my devotees. So what can I give to you? A person cannot love himself. A person cannot. Love is usually the most with the devotees of Bhagwan, not with Bhagwan himself. Bhagwan doesn't love himself as much as his devotees love him. So Bhagwan, you have nothing to give to me. And when we reach that stage, dear devotees, at this point of time, the devotee gives up the desire for liberation, any of the four acceptable types of liberation. He gives up the desire. This is beautifully spoken of by the spiritual master of Bhagwan himself, Shri Ishwar Puri, in a very nice verse in the Padyavali. In Padyavali, Shri Ishwar Puri sings, Yoga Shrutyupapatti Nirjanavana Dhyanadva Sambhavita Swarajyam Pratipatya Nirbhayamami Mukta Bhavantu Dvija Asmakam Tu Gadamba Kunja Kuhara Pronmilarindivara Shreni Shyamal Dham Nam Jishatam Janmastu Lakshavadhi. Yoga Shruti Upapatti Dvijaha. Let the twice born become liberated. Twice born means people who are initiated on various paths. Which paths? Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Shruti Upapatti, study of the Vedas, Nirjana Vana Dhyana, solitary meditation in the forest, Adhva, or walking on pilgrimages. Let them become liberated. Swarajyam Pratipadya. Let them realize their fearless, liberated nature in this way. Mukta Bhavantu. Let them become liberated. Dvija. They're all twice born initiated people on their respective paths. Asmakam tu, for us, however, Kadamba Kunja Kuhara Pronmila Dindivara Shreni Shyamala Thama Nama Jushatam. We want to savor, we want to relish over millions of lives that name of that personality who embodies the dark splendor of multitudes of blue lotuses blooming in the enclosures of thick powers of Kadamba trees. He doesn't even name that person. That person is intelligent enough to understand who he is. He knows whom we are speaking about. We want to spend multiple lives relishing his Naam. That's what we want. Dear devotees, why do we want to relish Bhagwan's Naam? That's a big question. Why do we want to relish Bhagwan's Naam? We want to relish Bhagwan's Naam secondarily because it gives pleasure to Bhagwan. Primarily because chanting Bhagwan's Naam gives pleasure to Sri Radha. Dear devotees, out of this desire, we want to spend millions of lives in this material world. Of course, liberation will come with her hands folded and fall at the feet of such devotees and say, please accept me. Liberation will become the ornament of such a devotee. It's not that such a devotee will suffer in the material world. Dear devotees, I want to ask you a simple question and please answer this query whenever you have time. Whenever you have time. It's an open question. Henceforth, whenever you get an answer to it, you can reply in the group or you can privately reply to me. Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, I ask you a query. Through you, I am asking everyone. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, is there any devotee who attained heavenly planets and then fell down from the heavenly planets and then became degraded as a karmi again?
No.
So the devotee does not come back to the material world like a karmi, like a Vedic karmi. What then to speak about the jnana vimukta bhakti paramah? That person will certainly not come back. Chitraketu Maharaj, who saw Bhagwan face to face, he had material desires. In the Bhagavatam, it is described after he left his body, he became a Gandharva. He had an airplane of his own, and with the Gandharva ladies, both arms around ladies, he used to sing songs of Bhagwan. Some of us may call that Sahajiya. But that's what he would, he was doing. And if he would have continued in his normal course by singing songs of Bhagwan, he would have gotten elevated, and then finally, after fulfillment of his desires, he would have gone back to Godhead. But Bhagwan wanted to speeden up the process. So through a pretext of a curse, he brought him back in one life. And that one life also was very short because Vritrasur didn't have to take birth as a small child and then grow up. And Vritrasur grew up pretty quickly and got killed by Indra pretty soon. So dear devotees, who is more hasty in bringing a devotee back to Godhead? Should we be hasty or should Bhagwan be hasty? Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu. Who should feel the haste?
Bhagavan.
Bhagwan should feel. Why are we taking that headache? Let Bhagwan take the headache of arranging a ticket back to Godhead. We have nothing to do with this entire headache of going back to God. It has given such trouble to us, that every morning we are waking up in fear simply because if we don't wake up at time, we will not be able to go back home, back to Godhead, and our life will be a failure. Because of this fear, we have remained stuck on the path of this Vaidhi Bhakti out of fear, and we are not able to explore the paths of Raganubha. Therefore, dear devotees, give up this desire for liberation. And those who have given up this desire for liberation, Bhagwan can do nothing for them but become indebted. Liberation will come as a maid servant, as a side effect. But Bhagwan becomes indebted. Indebted for those who are Premi Bhaktas. Indebted for those who are relishing Dasya Ras. An example is found in the Ramayana. Shri Ram sends everyone to find Sita. Everybody returns back disappointed, except for the Premi Bhakta who is in Dasyaras. Who is that personality? Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu, who returns with the news of success of finding Sita.
Hanuman.
Hanuman returns. And when Hanuman shows Bhagwan Ram, these are the glory that Sri Sita Devi gave, so that you will believe that I actually saw her. At that point of time, Bhagwan knows that my Premi Bhakta has done for me what nobody else could have done. At that point of time in the Valmiki Ramayana, Sri Ram says, Idam tu mama dinasya mano bhuyah prakarshati yad ihasya priyakyatur na kurmi sadrisham priyam. Mano bhuyah prakarshati. Hopeless as I am, dinasya, my mind is feeling even more depressed. Hey, Bhagwan, you should be happy. You heard about Sita. No, my mind is depressed because I am unable to do anything to reciprocate with him who has brought me delightful news of my beloved Sita. What will you give to Hanuman? Bhagwan, what happened? Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajamya. What happened, Bhagwan? Dhāmeśvara Mahaprabhu, what can Bhagwan do to repay Hanuman at this point of time?
Nothing really, besides give himself.
So at this point of time, Bhagwan says, Esha sarvasva bhutastu parishvango hanumatah maya kailam imam prapya dattastasya mahatmanah. This embrace of mine is all that I can offer to this great soul Hanuman right now. Because this is the only thing I have right now which is worthy of giving him. Dear devotees, Bhagwan has been defeated. The Shrutis have been falsified. Bhagwan's words in the Shruti, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajamyaham, have been falsified. By whom? Premaika nisthastata. By those who had no desire for self-happiness. By those who are Prema-sevottarā, those whose main focus is on Prema and Seva. Therefore, Bhagwan says, now I have nothing to give to you. Bhagwan is defeated at this point of time by his devotee. Till now, Bhagwan is standing and the devotee is bowing down. But now, Bhagwan has to bow down and embrace his devotee. Dear devotees, this was Dasyaras. When such spotless prema manifests in Sakhyaras, Bhagwan becomes indebted to his friends. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there's a very nice statement which Krishna speaks about Draupadi. Draupadi had an element of Sakhyaras in her. And when she was in her greatest distress, she remembered Krishna. When she was being humiliated in the assembly of the Kauravas. And the way she cried out for Krishna in that assembly, Krishna later remembered and said, Riname tat pravriddham me Hridayanna pasarpati yad govindeti chukrosha krishnamam duravasinam. Krishna says, Rinam etat pravriddham me. My heart feels increasingly burdened by a debt that does not seem to go away. What is that debt? The debt of gratitude which I accrued when Draupadi loudly cried out to me, even though I was situated far away in Dwarka. So, dear devotees, for those who are relishing Sakhya also, Bhagwan is indebted. And those who are in Vatsalya, Sri Krishna, after liberating his parents, Devaki and Vasudeva, Sri Krishna said to them, Tat kshantum arhatas tata matarnau paratantrayo akurvator vam sushrusham klishtayor durhridabhrisham. Dear father and mother, please forgive us, Krishna and Balram, for not serving you. Arre, but you should have served us. Ye yatha mam prapatyante. Tam tathaiva bhajamya. Where is your bhajamyaham? I'm sorry, I could not. I was not independent. I was greatly frustrated by cruel Kamsa. Oh, come on, Krishna. Vasudeva will say, I saw you with 4 arms when you took birth. You were Bhagwan. And you are saying you're frustrated by Kamsa. There is a similar incident in Brihad-bhagavatamritam. What to speak about the Vrajavasis? When Krishna was in Dwaraka, he once started lamenting loudly in front of Uddhav. He said, I could not do anything for the Vrajavasis. I could not do anything for them. I could not do anything for these Vrajavasis. What can I do, Uddhav? Please tell me. At that point of time, in Dwaraka, Maharaj Ugrasen's wife was there, Padma. She ended up speaking something as a joke, which shocked Krishna to the core of his existence. Padma said, because she was afraid that in his lamentation, Krishna may end up donating the entire kingdom of Dwarka to the Vrajavasis. So she said, no, don't worry, Krishna. We will do one thing. Let's call Garga Muni. He's very expert in calculations. He will calculate every morsel of food that Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda fed you. Twice that amount of wealth Maharaj Ugrasen will give to Nanda and Yashoda. Twice that wealth. When Krishna heard this, that Padma is thinking of repaying back Nanda and Yashoda's morsels of food with money, Krishna was shocked to the core of his existence. It is described in the Brihad Bhagavatamritam. Krishna just kept quiet at that point of time. Quiet, absolutely quiet, and neglected these stupid utterances of Padma. Dear devotees, there is nothing that Bhagwan can do in front of such servants, in front of such friends, in front of such parents. Outside of Vraja, what to speak of friends, parents, servants inside Vraja? Bhagwan cannot do anything to pay them back. And dear devotees, what to speak of the gopis of Vraja? But I'll not take their topic up today, because their topic has to be reserved for the next talk. Therefore, dear devotees, those who are able to overcome their desire for bhukti and mukti, they attain liberation, which is Prema-sevottarā. They are ekanishthas, one-pointedly fixed in prema. And they are much more broad-minded than Bhagwan himself. They are more broad-minded than Bhagwan. Dear devotees, premaika nishtha. Bhagwan cannot do anything to pay back such devotees. Thank you very much. Yadatra skhalitam kinchit vidvamsah purayantu tat. Yadatra saushthavam kinchit tad guru reva mene. If there's any mistake in what I said, dear devotees, you're all learned individuals, please correct what I said. But if there's anything nice, please remember tad guru reva. I learned all of it from my gurujanas. May nahi. Nothing comes from me. Thank you very much, dear devotees. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Guru. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for a wonderful class. You know, I've read this 10th verse of Upadeshamritam many times, and it's really easy to just gloss over and miss the real significance. There's so much deep meaning in each of the words and the whole hierarchy and all of the examples you can think of different personalities and devotees who meet these categories. So it's really illuminating and gives me so much more appreciation for the text, the way that you're explaining everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Really grateful.
That's why it's really a privilege to do this service, even though there's so many devotees who are much more qualified than I am here. We're going to go to questions and answers, and we just have a few requests about the Q&A before we get started. I'm just going to share it here. First of all, we ask that you ask questions related to today's class. It's natural to want to ask questions that are on your mind from your own studies or association, especially since we have such a learned pundit as Hari Pārṣada Prabhu. Even one question came up at the beginning of class about Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. However, we want to stay focused on Upadeshamrita class just because we won't have time to answer everyone's questions about everything on their mind. There are some questions which require some looking up of particular commentaries or words or verses. And so if they're very specific, then it might be better to ask them in the WhatsApp group as compared to here. That's something to consider. Thirdly, which is important, is we don't want to ask any political or loaded questions where we're bringing up particular people or institutions and asking questions like, well, you know, if the scripture says this, then why do they do this in this institution? You know, why does this teacher do this? Those kinds of questions we want to avoid and just speak in principle as we're learning Shastra here, in a general way. And lastly, if you have very intricate, extended questions that take a lot of time, please don't take over the whole Q&A, but leave time for other people. And if you still want to come back to ask more, please just break it up into turns, and so you can ask your initial question and then come back later, and we'll get back around to you. Anything else to add, Prabhuji?
This is sufficient, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Great. All right, so our first question is from Tanvi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandi Pranam. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. So I just wanted clarification on this thing, as you said that Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi, you quoted the shlokas that we love someone because we are self-centered on our love. So isn't it like whatever we are loving Bhagwan, like we are practicing sadhana for Bhagwan, but of course we relish that devotion, we relish the activities which are done for Bhagwan. So doesn't it become self-centered again?
It becomes self-centered if self-centeredness or self-happiness is the primary motivation. That is what Sri Rupa Goswami says, that Sukhaishwaryottara. variety of liberation, where your sukha, where your aishwarya, your happiness, your prosperity is the primary motivation. That is a valid motivation. Let's say for some devotee, Bhagwan doesn't reciprocate. Let's say for some devotee, Bhagwan does something, to seemingly upset the mood of the devotee. Will the devotee still continue? And the answer is yes. Why will a devotee continue if Bhagwan is upsetting their intentions? Can you please tell me, Tanvi Mataji?
Yes. If the devotee truly wants to please Bhagwan, then he will continue.
The answer should be more refined than this. The answer is Bhagwan before me, not me before Bhagwan.
Yes.
When that is the position of the devotee, that is where prema lies. And when my happiness before Bhagwan's happiness, that is where there are mixtures. So that is the answer to your query.
Yes. Thank you.
Next we have Part Pancholi Prabhu.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
My pronouns.
Thank you for the session, Prabhuji. I really think that key to all prem is Raganuga Bhakti. So my question is that, Prabhuji, actually, so it is my thinking only that, so taking my consideration, so as aspiring for any of the rest, so I should know more and more about my lover or friend or master, maybe. Uh, okay, so I can learn about him from the scriptures or Raganuga Bhakti. So my question is that is this also comes under acquiring gyan? And if it's so, okay, then where's the difference in it about knowing more and more about Krishna?
All right. I'll rephrase the question because the audio was slightly unclear. Because even on the path of Raganuga Bhakti, there is a need to know about Krishna, his name, form, qualities, and pastimes from the scriptures. Isn't that gyan? So where does acquiring such gyan fall? That is your question, right?
Right.
So I'm not sure if you watched the previous sessions. On many occasions, I have specified from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu commentary of Sri Jiva Goswami that any knowledge, any gyan which is acquired on the path of bhakti is not considered as gyan. It is considered as a limb of bhakti only. Gyan refers to nirvishesh brahma gyan, nirbhed brahma gyan. The term gyan actually refers to researching into the impersonal Brahman. And any gyan which is for, furthering one's bhakti is actually counted as a limb of bhakti. So I will once again show this particular pramana, although it has been shown many times previously. But I would request that, devotees who have a question similar to this, that it is better to kindly refer to the previous talks. I am sharing my screen again, where Sri Jiva Goswami says in the commentary to Anyabhilashita Shunyam. He says, Jnanam atra nirbheda brahmanusandhanam na tu bhajaniya tattvanusandhanam api. He says, actually, Gyan means research into, means what is the Gyan which we don't want? That is the Gyan where we are researching into the impersonal Brahman, not the Gyan where we are researching into Bhajan Tattva or into Bhagwan. He further says, Tasya avashya apekshaniyatvat. Such Gyan about Bhagwan, his name, form, quality, pastime is definitely needed. It is obviously expected from the devotee. It is a part of your bhajan. So that is the answer to your query. I hope that satisfies your query.
Next we have Shamachandra Prabhu.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, wonderful. If you don't mind, can you please share that screen again, showing the Yajnavalkya verse, Prabhuji?
Yeah, it is not a verse, it is a paragraph in the Verses usually have.
Yeah.
So I will share that section of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad which has Yajnavalkya's.
Yeah, the husband wants to leave and the husband wants to leave and the wife, the discussion goes on between the husband and wife, correct?
Yeah,
And that is the context where he speaks all these things.
yeah. So this is
Okay.
the.
Yeah, so there are like series of verses you have quoted here, and I like to focus on the two words here. The first word is Atma, and the second word is Kama. Because this verse basically it talks, I believe that this just talks about like an ordinary person's, because for an ordinary person, it is the word used here is Kama. Means Kama basically is material. It is not spiritual. It is not Prema. And the other word is that Atma. And of course, as you know, the Atma has multiple meanings. You can say here for yourself, or the Atma can also means it can be Paramatma. So in that sense, sometimes you can even extend this verse into the spiritual realm, sadhana realm also by extending the word meaning of the word Atma. But of course, the second word Kama is the problem because Kama it clearly means it is not spiritual. It is something which is material. But that is why in Bhakti, even in the devotee relationships, there is no Kama. There is actually Prema because we are seeing each other as, devotees. So that is not a Kama, I would say, right? And then, so it does not apply, I would say, over there. And interestingly, in the next verse, Shankaracharya uses the word Preeti, because Preeti means again, that kind of goes into the spiritual realm. It is not like a material karma. That is why, it kind of makes more sense because even for a Jnana Yoga also, Shankaracharya also, he also talks about bhakti in some aspects. And my question is that, and for a liberation, that one has to be cleansed of this karma. We cannot have karma and then still have mukti. That chitta nivritti has to happen. And even these 5 types of liberation also, that is sometimes which is kind of confusing for me. That how can someone attain liberation and still be, get those things influenced by this chitta vritti and this karma aspects, and have all these, things, And even in the Sahajya Mukti also, there is, of course, some devotees say that Sahajya Mukti you can still fall down. That's the reason why, because you still don't have prema. But of course, some devotees say no, you cannot fall down because there is no karma. Anyway, it's a lot of things I've said, but I hope that you understood, what I'm trying to say. Can you
Okay.
offer your thoughts on this, Prabhuji?
See, Prabhu, the main, the one thing which I understood from your query is about the use of the term karma. So karma is used mainly in terms of sense enjoyment in the material world. But on many occasions, karma is also used in terms of spiritual desires. Sri Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Premaiva Goparamanam Kama Ityagamat Pratham. The prema of the gopis is sometimes known as kama. Itti Uddhavadayo Pyetam Vanchanti Bhagavat Priya. So sometimes Uddhava, etc. also, desire such traces of love. But it is known as kama sometimes. So even in the spiritual world, it is known as kama also, although it is actually prema. So karma is also used in context of the spiritual world. It is specified in the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu itself. So I have shown the praman for that. And I could not get the second part of your query. Uddhav, etc. also, what was that query about, Prabhu? I'm not able to hear you.
Yeah, so yes, Prabhu. Yeah, I was able to unmute myself. Yeah, the second point I was making is that, that how can one still get liberated even with this, this karma still being present, or, because liberation is also kind of classified into this karma, which is self-interest. Then how can one still be liberated and still have this, karma is still in their heart, and isn't it the kind of contradicting the definition of liberation itself?
No, because this karma is not for material enjoyment. This karma is for enjoyment of other types with Bhagwan. So since this karma, the desires that, the Sukha, Aishwarya, Uttara, the devotees who desire Sukha and Aishwarya and Vaikuntha, their desires are to enjoy with Bhagwan. It's a valid and legitimate desire. Nothing wrong with that. So it is we who need to change our perception of going back to Godhead, because sometimes we have a very impersonal conception that you cannot go back to Godhead if you have any tendencies for enjoyment. No, you can devotionalize those tendencies and you can aspire for devotional enjoyment in the spiritual world. There is nothing wrong with that. Kubja, she desired to enjoy directly with Bhagwan. Obviously, she went back home, back to Godhead. There's nothing wrong in having, desires for enjoying in the association of Bhagwan, and that is given legitimacy in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So that is the answer to your query, Prabhuji.
Next, we have Madhav Tripati Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanwad Pranam, Prabhuji. Thank you
Hi,
so
Madhav.
much for this wonderful lecture, Prabhuji. So, Prabhuji, as you mentioned, these two types of devotional liberations. So, one is like not liberation, but devotional service. So, one is the this one with awe and reverence. What was the term?
There are two types of liberations: Sukhaishwaryottara, Prema-sevottarā.
Yeah, so Sukhaishwarya Uttara and Seva Uttara. Yeah, so if somebody is, let's say, with a particular disposition towards Sukhaishwarya Uttara, and over a period of time, he might become freed from that and move towards the Prem Seva Uttara type of the disposition. So is it possible to have for this transition to happen, because both are in essence spiritual, both are spiritual and eternal? So is it possible that one person can go from one tendency to the other?
Before liberation, before final liberation, it is definitely possible, because before your sthai bhav is set, it is definitely possible. But once you have a sthai bhav towards Bhagwan, then it is not possible, because that is sthai bhav, it doesn't change. So before you get liberated, you go back to the spiritual world, you go to the spiritual world, it is definitely possible, but that possibility usually occurs when you come in contact with a Premi Bhakta. So that is what it is. And that's what Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said. Sometimes the, Bhakti Pradhani Bhuta type of person comes in contact with a Dasya Sakhya Vatsalya, Premi Bhakta, and then he develops that particular taste. That is possible, but not every time.
But Prabhuji, there also it was mentioned that, like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentioned, that that would be Aishwaryamay again.
Yes, that would be Aishwaryamay, because if the Bhakti, as long as he is speaking about the case where Bhakti still remains Pradhani Bhuta, but if the association causes him to completely give up the tendencies for Gyan, etc., in a rare case, he may take up, Kevala Bhakti, Uttama Bhakti, and change his destination before he goes to the spiritual world. And that is what it is.
Prabhuji, thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
If you don't mind, Prabhuji, I had a comment about the previous question.
Yeah.
When Rupa Goswami is framing our theology, he'll use particular words to designate a particular tattva or understanding.
Yeah.
So, for example, he uses the word nishta to mean when you're really fixed in your bhakti yoga and you're effectively not acting on your anartas. And so that word is being used in a particular way, but it's not always used in that particular way. It has other meanings too. It can just simply mean, determination or conviction, steadiness, and that could be towards other paths too.
Right.
And so, or another example is Bhagavan. We use that phrase in a particular theological way to mean the Supreme Lord, but it's also used to describe great sages or personalities. And that doesn't mean the scripture is saying they're God.
Right.
And so we have to be careful when we're interpreting the scripture that we don't take a particular way that our acharyas use a word and assume that every time the word is used that it's carrying the same meaning. Obviously,
Yes.
Shankaracharya didn't read Rupa Goswami because he came before Rupa Goswami.
Yeah.
And so these words like kama and priti, it doesn't mean love of God in this context. We use it that way, but it just means affection or liking, and kama just means desire. So we use it actually both material and spiritual desire.
Right.
but
Yeah.
we have to take it words in context of how that acharya uses it.
Wonderful. Yeah. So taxonomies, terminologies are specific to the particular literature that we are studying. Therefore, in the Gaudiya Vaishnava context, the term kama is often used in terms of material desire, but sometimes it is also used in the case of the desires of the gopis. Both I have specified, mainly because in Chaitanya Charitamrita it says Atmendriya Priti Vancha Tarebali Kam. That Kam is basically the desire to satisfy one's own senses. It is very clear that mainly the Gaudiya Vaishnavas use the term Kam to specify one's own material pleasure. But in the case of the gopis, sometimes the scriptures use the term Kama. For example, Srimad Bhagavatam says Gopyah Kamat Bhayat Kamsah. So that's what Srimad Bhagavatam says. Gopis surrendered to Krishna out of Kam. What does Kam mean? Rupa Goswami says sometimes Prema is denoted as Kam. So, but in case of the gopis, there is no trace of material Kam. There is always Prema because they are much above, Prema-ikanishtas. Gopis are much above even Prema-ikanishtas. There is no question of them having any tinge of, karma or gyan within their particular methodology of approaching Sri Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. That's a wonderful comment.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Next we have Kamala Devi Dasi, Mataji, and Kamniya Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Babuji, that were our humble obeisances to you, Dhāmeśvara, Mahāprabhu, and all the Vaishnavas, Babuji. Babuji, a truly amazing class. You have answered so many questions which I've been thinking. And one of them is like, you mentioned that let Bhagwan take the pain in delivering us. Like I've been thinking many times that if Krishna really wants to take us, he should make us our path clear rather than we have. Maybe it might be out of selfishness, but but you touched upon that point very well and you answered that also. So, Babuji, and at the end, you mentioned about when Krishna cannot reciprocate and you gave a couple of examples, right, in situation of Hanuman and Ram, and when Padmavati was talking about that, how will you pay back in terms of material stuff. So I was just thinking, Babuji, in such situations, I'm not talking about particular example, but such situations when Krishna become kind of say helpless, that what should I give him? I have nothing to give him in case of gopis, Radharani, anyone. So what will be the situation of his mental thought process, or what kind of emotions he would be going through? So is there any kind of a literature or some kind of a verses given by our previous acharyas that, because when you become helpless, you really feel very, very bad, especially in our material world also when you become helpless, right? So I'm just trying to contemplate upon that, what Bhagwan situation would be in this kind of different occasions.
Right.
I'm sorry, Babuji, if I asked the wrong question, but I just out of curiosity.
So you asked a perfect question. It's only the Gaudiya Vaishnava Bhagwan who feels helpless, who feels disappointed, who's frustrated in his attempts to reciprocate with his Premi Bhaktas. What is the mindset of Bhagwan in such cases? And therefore, Sri Rupa Goswami penned a verse which was later included in the Chaitanya Charitamritam, where Bhagwan also had a desire. Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrisho Vanayaiva Swadhyo Yena Adbhutamadharuma Kidrisho Vamadhiya Saukhyam Chasya Madanubhavata Kidrisham Veti Lobhat Tadbhavadya Samajani Shachi Garba Sindhu Harindu. What is the love that Sri Radha has for me? What is the greatness of her love? I have not been able to reciprocate, but I want to understand what it is. And for this reason, he appeared as a devotee in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Bhagwan has to become a devotee in order to understand what it is to experience prema. Otherwise, Bhagwan remains incomplete until he becomes a devotee. Therefore, we are not actually Krishna's devotees. What will Krishna give to us? There is nothing that Krishna can give to us. Actually, we are devotees of Srimati Radharani because she is the only one who has truly the capacity to give something which our particular heart can accept. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas understand this fact. So that is the answer to your query.
What a wonderful question and wonderful answer. Thank you very much. Any follow-up, Kamya Krishna?
No, thank you very much, Babuji. It was a very sweet answer, like I probably would have to contemplate and more read about it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, if I start speaking in this direction, it will take many talks to explain what is the mindset of Bhagwan when Bhagwan becomes indebted. Maybe I'll speak sometime in the future, but it's a very detailed topic on how Bhagwan is defeated.
Yeah, Babuji, it will be very relishing, and I cannot imagine what would be the level of satisfaction when we read this, hear this. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So long story short, when Bhagavan is put in a helpless condition where he can't reciprocate with his devotee because the devotee won't accept anything in return, then Bhagavan does feel some lacking. And out of that lacking, he desires to experience the love that the devotee has and becomes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
There's a very nice essay, an article, a talk which was given by my Shiksha Guru Sri Srimad Gaur Govind Swami Maharaj. It is called The Greed of the Lord. So, in which he specified how when Bhagwan appeared as Narsimhadev for the first time, he saw the relishment that Prahlad was having. But Narsimhadev had no parents. His parent was the pillar. Narsimhadev felt a greed in his heart that henceforth I'll accept parents. So in all the other incarnations after Narsimhadev, he accepted parents. And then when he appeared as Ram, and the sages of Dandakaranya approached him for saying that, we want to have a relationship of Madhurya Ras with you. He said, no, I have taken the vow of one wife. Then he again developed the desire to see what it is to have paramah relationships. So he appeared as Krishna. And when as Krishna, he saw that Srimati Radharani's love is unparalleled. There is no way that I can ever repay. There is no way I can reciprocate with this love. That is when Bhagwan became helpless. Actually, we don't want to be in that situation in the material world. Dear devotees, sometimes too much love can choke us with sweetness. And that is what happened to Bhagwan. And that is what happened to Bhagwan. And that is why Bhagwan was unable to reciprocate with Srimati Radharani. And therefore, he had this desire that I'll appear again and experience the love as a devotee. So that is what it is.
Well, it's so tempting to keep poking in this direction. We're going to go now to Omkar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, and Pranam. Thank you for the lecture, Prabhu. Prabhuji, today at the beginning you stated that a devotee who has inclination for enjoyment maybe minor enjoyment, will eventually have to take to Krama Mukti, and then he'll go back to Godhead. Like the main point was that he has to exhaust his enjoyment. But as we see, like Uttama Bhakti, it also covers the sadhan dasha. And in the sadhan dasha, there is anartha nivritti. So even a devotee who does not want to have any kind of enjoyment, although it is allowed, he just wants to have a relationship with Bhagavan, he also, due to his past association, will have desires for sense enjoyment, and which will have to get over through anartha nivritti. So the point is, like, for every bhakta, like after anartha nivritti, basically the desires will go away. So why do we state this need that the devotee with having desires will have to go to other planets?
As long as prema is not there, till that point of time, there is still a possibility that a trace of material desires may crop up at any point of time. Only at the stage of prema are all desires thoroughly eradicated. Does that make sense?
So
Should I show a praman for the same?
the aspiring.
I didn't get the query. Can you please repeat, Project?
Yes, bro. My question was simple that a devotee, like sadhan dasha also covers the point of anartha nivritti. So he has to get rid of the desires for sense enjoyment. And we see that a devotee who is having sense enjoyment is going basically in the upper planetary systems.
Yeah. So what's
Krishna?
what's the query again? Did you hear my answer, Project?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
So the main point was like uh, I think I'll frame the question and send you, Prabhu, in the group. I think I just lost the link. I've written it, but I just
Yeah.
lost the
So
link.
I just want to specify this thing that
Correct.
Sri Rupa Goswami says Vishayeshu Garishtopi Ragah Prayo Viliyate. That Ruchim Udvahatas Tatra Janasya Bhajane Hare Vishayeshu Garishtopi Ragah Prayo Viliyate. That even the deepest attachment to sense enjoyment will be eradicated, at the stage of Ruchi, but Praya, almost eradicated. In the commentary, the commentators say that actually at the stage of Bhav also some material desires, some traces may be there, and at the stage of Prema they are fully eradicated. So that is what it is, Prajit.
Yes, bro. So for a Raganuga Bhakta also, who may not have completed anartha nivritti, but he is interested only in service. So will he also have to go to the other planetary systems?
If a Raganuga
Because
Bhakta
that's
has,
a special case.
if a Raganuga Bhakta has, basically, if a Raganuga Bhakta has, taken to the process of bhakti in this life, and then they still have material desires, and at the stage of anartha nivritti, those desires are still there. But still, because their practice is of Raganuga Bhakti, therefore, what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said in Bhagavad Gita was mainly about the Vaidhi Bhakta. He was not speaking there about the Raganuga Bhakta. Rules for Raganuga Bhakta are different. Therefore, that same logic will not be applicable to the Raganuga Bhakta because his desire is not the same as the desire of the Vaidhi Bhakta. That is the answer to your query. He
So
will enjoy.
the conception of bhakti also matters.
Obviously, it matters.
Yes,
But in
true.
the Bhagavad Gita commentary, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was speaking in general about the Vaidhi Sadhak Bhaktas. That is what is to be inferred from his commentary. Right?
Yes, sir. So we can just maybe conclude this point that Uttama Bhakti is fully manifested in the Rag Marg Bhajan.
Obviously, yes, definitely.
Its full potential is manifested.
Yes, yes. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Done.
Next we have Mangesh.
Okay. And my question, thank you, Prabhuji, for explaining so nicely the Jnana Vimukta Bhakti Paramas in the whole class. Prabhuji, my question is like that earlier also one question Kamala Devi Mataji asked that how Lord is feeling and that how he cannot repay the depth of his unalloyed devotees. So Prabhuji, yes, regarding this I have a question that how, because Lord is giving so many things to his unalloyed devotee, like he's maintaining, he's giving air and all the ingredients for their maintenance, and also everything, their action is also because Lord is there in the heart. Means Lord is already doing so many things. Then how can he think like that? He is not doing anything for them, and he cannot do anything for them.
Because giving basic necessities of life is nothing in comparison to prema. You cannot compare basic necessities of life with giving prema. Let's say there is a parent and there is a child, and the child loves the parent dearly. The child has done everything for the parents, everything he has, he takes utmost care of the parent, and then the parents say, oh well, anyways we gave him birth, so what? So that's not reciprocation. Reciprocation is not simply that Bhagwan is maintaining all the living entities. Reciprocation is in equal terms. Bhagwan is maintaining the living entities, but Bhagwan is also deriving his happiness from the living entities. So Bhagwan is also deriving something from the living entities. It's not that he's maintaining them for free. The give and take relationship is that Bhagwan is also deriving a lot of happiness. Who manifested the creation? Did the living entities manifest the creation or Bhagwan manifested the creation? Who manifested the creation? Mangesh Prabhu.
Krishna.
So then who had the original desire? The Upanishad says saha akamayat. He desired. Who desired first?
Sorry.
Ekoham bahusyam. I am alone, let me become many. And then he manifested the material world. This was Karanodakashayi Vishnu. So he was alone and then he manifested many. I mean, living entities never produced. But in the material world, living entities manifested and unmanifested in the material world. So he was alone, he felt the need to have some enjoyment, he manifested the living entities. So but it is his desire originally. So obviously, if it is his desire, he will maintain. That is the bare minimum. But the living entities are also reciprocating by having various pastimes which can give him pleasure in the material world. It's a give and take, that's done already. But if some living entity is doing more than that, sacrificing his personal happiness and giving happiness exclusively to Bhagwan, that is something additional. That's not under necessity, that falls under luxury for Bhagwan. So what can Bhagwan, how can Bhagwan reciprocate with that? That's the answer to your query.
Before we go,
Also,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I have another question. I will take another turn, please. So thank you, please.
Thank you. We'll come back to you. Before we go to second questions, we're going to take one from Paramah Prabhu.
Oh, my problem.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dhanavad Pranam. My question is regarding this Sukhaishwarya Uttara devotees compared to the Prema-sevottarā, Prabhuji. Even when I was going to the Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu, I was a little confused, a little bit. My question is, how do the Sukhaishwarya Uttara devotees get Salokya Adi Mukti if this tendency for Sukha and Aishwarya is predominant? I do recognize that there is the Seva, Prema and Seva desire also there, but that is secondary by the very definition. So, or maybe how do they get Salokya Adi, or what kind of Salokya Adi, which portion of Vaikuntha, or do they get? If you could please elaborate
Sure.
on that.
See, the way in which our minds have been conditioned till now is that any desire for happiness is Maya. That is how our mind has been conditioned till now. The aim of this particular talk was to decondition some of that, because our acharyas have specified slightly differently. Some individuals may have desires for enjoyment in Vaikuntha or other spiritual planets. Those desires are legitimate desires. So some things we have to unlearn, because till now our mind is thinking any desire for enjoyment is bad. So this is the thought process of a Nirvisheshvadi, an impersonalist, that any desire for enjoyment is bad. So that is not the case. Desires for enjoyment in the kingdom of Bhagwan are good. Desires for enjoyment with Bhagwan are good. Let's take the example of Padma, the wife of Ugrasen. She became fearful when she saw Krishna is lamenting. What can I give to the Vrajvasis? What was her fear? Can you tell me, Param Karuna Prabhu?
I'm sorry. So you said that
She was fearful that Krishna may end up giving the kingdom to the Vrajvasis. And if Krishna
yes.
ends up giving the kingdom to the Vrajvasis, what will happen to Maharaj Ugrasen?
You will be left without anything.
And then what will happen to Padma?
She will also be left without anything.
And now she'll have to become servant of Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda.
Yeah, that's why she was trying to repay.
Wonderful. Now you get a hint of devotees who are Sukheshwaryottara. They love their relationship with Krishna. That's all right. But Sukh and Aishwarya comes first. Right?
May I maybe just extend it a little bit? That is it possible that, so if the desire for Sukha Aishwarya is predominant, then and you're saying very rightly so that there is no problem with that. That's accepted, or I accept that. But could it potentially lead to some kind of negligence of Krishna, or bahirmukta, or I may not be choosing the right word, but caring for or being concerned with one's own happiness, even though if it is spiritual, but being like we
Like some disloyalty,
sorry,
like some disloyalty to Krishna.
loyalty or separate enjoying separately from Krishna is sort of the term that we use all the time.
Let's decondition ourselves from all this Krishna-centric patriotism that we have been taught since the beginning. That either you're a patriot or you are a treacherous soul. There's nothing in between. So it's time to decondition ourselves from this line of thought. That either you fully understand Bhagwan and his innermost desires, or you are nobody. That's not how the spiritual world works. In the example, I quoted the example of Padma because it's very relevant to the discussion. She does not understand Bhagwan's mind. She does not understand Krishna's mind. Yet she is there in Dwarka. How can she be present in the spiritual world in Dwarka if she is so negligent of Krishna's mind?
Yes, kind of my question.
Yeah, obviously.
But I'm trying to analyze. What's the analysis? The Praman is there, yes, front and center.
Once Bhagwan has accepted a living entity, Bhagwan will never give up that living entity. That is the conclusion. Once Bhagwan has accepted a living entity, Bhagwan will never give up on that living entity. No matter even if that living entity behaves like Padma.
Paramah Prabhuji. It sounds like the premise of your questions is that you can't go to the spiritual world if you have any desires for your own benefit. And that Hari Parsha Prabhu is not accepting that premise.
Not me. It's the previous acharyas and the examples that I gave are clearly against that premise. That's why the need for distinguishing between Sukhaishwaryottara and Prema-sevottarā. That's the primary need of distinguishing between those two types of liberation. Why would Rupa Goswami have the need to distinguish? That Rupa Goswami could have whitewashed everything and said Prema-sevottarā only and nothing else in the spiritual world. No, there are individuals who have desires for
If you
their.
allow,
Yeah, sure, Prabhu. Please continue.
then yes, okay, I get that the difference, the significance of differentiating between Prema-sevottarā and Sukhaishwaryottara. Could you please then just little bit shed light on the difference between Sukhaishwaryottara and the material pleasure that one is aspiring for? And of course, in the material pleasure case, we stay in the material world. So what causes Lord Krishna to accept one into his spiritual kingdom? If it is what kind of Sukha Aishwarya, because we are also looking for Sukha Aishwarya here. Maybe I'm asking a very basic question, but in this sort of dialogue here, I'm kind of getting a little bit blurred and confused. So please help me.
Sure. Suppose some devotee is practicing bhakti here, Vaidhi bhakti. They have material desires. They will attain Salokya, Sukhaishwaryottara. So a devotee who may be having material desires here, but who predominantly practiced Vaidhi bhakti. Later, the devotee goes to heavenly planets, clears out his or her desires through, enjoyment. And then after clearing out the desires through enjoyment and realizing that, oh, well, better than all of this is my path of seva and bhakti, goes to the spiritual world, but experiences a similar type of enjoyment and pleasure with Bhagwan, obviously much more greater degree in Vaikuntha. So it's obviously most of them are those cases who were jnana vimukta bhakti paramah. Those type of devotees attain Sukhaishwaryottara, variety of liberation. And premaika nisthastata attain the Prema-sevottarā type of liberation. So a devotee is allowed to have a certain small window of material desires, and that is legitimized by the Srimad Bhagavatam. Where is it legitimized by the Srimad Bhagavatam? Where Krishna himself says to Uddhav. What does Krishna says to Uddhav? Vadhyamanopi mad bhakto vishayai prayah pragalbhaya bhaktya vishayar na vibhuyate. This is 11.14.18. You can kindly read the translation, Prabhu.
My dear Uddhava, if my devotee has not fully conquered his senses, he may be harassed by material desires. But because of his unflinching devotion for me, he will not be defeated by sense gratification.
What is the meaning of he will not be defeated by sense gratification? Can you elaborate, Prabhu?
He will not be taken over by it and make that more predominant compared to the bhakti.
Okay, as a result of, but he still has material desires and then he dies. Bhakti was prominent, desires were secondary. He dies. What happens?
Well, the Lord, either he could get a next birth in Swarga, or the Lord may accept him into his spiritual kingdom, into Vaikuntha.
He gets his birth in higher planets, but does he fall from the higher planets?
No.
What happens after the higher planets?
Well, if he continues his bhakti in the higher, this tendency.
There's no question of if. Now he's going to continue. His bhakti is pradhani bhuta. Bhakti is the prominent element in his life.
Yes.
So what is going to happen? He keeps ascending. And then which variety of liberation does he attain? Sukhaishwaryottara or Prema-sevottarā?
It appears to be Sukhaishwaryottara.
Wonderful. So that is how these individuals end up in the spiritual world.
All right, Prabhuji.
And
I'll-
there is another category of individuals in the spiritual world did not come from the material world, who are eternally present in the spiritual world in the Sukha Aishwarya Uttara positions. So those are the Nitya Siddhas. And they are eternally situated there. And they have no taste of the material world because they've never fallen from the spiritual world. So that is the second category of jivas which are eternally present in the spiritual world as Nitya Siddhas.
Okay, Prabhuji, got it. Yes,
Okay.
that's very, very nice. Thank you for this analysis. I will
Yes.
go over it again and solidify my understanding. Thank you so
Sure,
much.
sure. If you have any other queries also, please feel free to ask in the group, Prabhuji, so that devotees will also be benefited. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
So, Prabhuji, if we want to distinguish between devotees in the spiritual world who are interested in their own happiness first, and people in the material world who are after their own happiness, it would be that those devotees like Padmavati in the spiritual world, they only want their happiness with Bhagavan.
Right.
They want to be married to Bhagavan and have the beautiful kingdom and all of the opulence.
Right.
And that's what they want. And they'll never accept material world happiness because Bhagavan's not there.
Right.
So there's no disloyalty there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because somehow it's given
There's
a patriot.
no
Yeah.
Amir Mukti.
Yeah. Somehow it's given a patriotic color that, either you are in or you're out. So it's not that. Is that they have their own desires, but they want it with Bhagwan. And they want it in the eternal association of Bhagwan's energy. That's where they are happiest. So Bhagwan gives them ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamya.
So although the materialist and those devotees have in common that they're after their own happiness, the difference is where they find it.
100%. So we have now, understood the subtleties of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta. That's how, we refine our understandings one step at a time, because there are many things to unlearn and then many things to learn. And this is the process to do it. And that is what.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I think we haven't taken a question from Sachindra Krishna Prabhu yet.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, all the Vaishnavas and Dr. Pranams. I'm going to ask a question. I'm not sure if it's a question or comment or whatever, but I'll say it anyways. In the material world, we see that we serve many people, our brothers, sisters, friends, and lovers, and getting, serving them and getting an embrace, a loving embrace, is a reward in itself. And coming back to this slide when Hanuman, and he's getting an embrace from Krishna. Krishna is saying, this embrace of mine is all that I can offer to this great soul because this is the only thing I have right now. It's kind of funny to me because that loving embrace, in a spiritual sense, when you're serving with all your heart, is all you want. And it's a combination of, this is all you need, Krishna. There's nothing more that I need from you. A Dāsa as Lord Hanuman, or a parent, or a son or child. He's saying, what more is there to give? And I'm just kind of thinking to myself, I'm confused. There's nothing more to be had because that service is for you. What else can you give me? That embrace is all that you want. Is that wrong? A little childish of me to think?
Didn't Bhagwan Ram embrace Hanuman time to time before he set out on the mission?
I have to plead ignorance. I don't know.
Before all the army generals were sent on the mission, Bhagwan Ram personally, blessed them, embraced them, said, may you be victorious. Go and come out victorious. That's one thing. Another thing is, you are being too generous towards Bhagwan. Too generous. You should evaluate Bhagwan based on his words. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyam. I reciprocate according to the intensity of a person's surrender. Now, should Bhagwan be evaluated according to his words or not? Should Bhagwan be held accountable for his words? Yes or no, Prabhu?
Yes.
So what Hanuman did for Bhagwan Ram, going over Lanka, going over the ocean, setting the entire Lanka on fire, and getting news of Sita Devi, bringing her ornaments, and in return he gets an embrace. Of course, that's an embrace of love. Prabhu, where is the consistency of words and actions?
But when you're serving someone's love, you don't, I mean, there's nothing in return that you need but that embrace. I mean, that's a treasure.
You are
Even
thinking from the point of view of
material.
the devotee. You are thinking from the point of view of the devotee. Think from the point of view of Bhagwan.
I don't know. I mean,
Therefore, it's good that you are not in the position of Bhagwan. It's a very unfortunate position to be, especially when you have so many Premi devotees committing favor after favor upon you. It's better to be a devotee.
We don't envy that.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you for the devotees who are patiently waiting. We will get to you. We're just going to get everyone who's asking their first question. So next we have Kriparam Prabhu.
Dandavats, Hare Krishna, Dandavats, Hare Prasad Prabhu.
My parents.
Continue with this topic that if we have material desires is bad or not bad for spiritual advancement. I think that for many years in our movement we overemphasize brahmacharya and renunciation, but we know that 99% of our community are grihastas. I feel that if the devotees of, for example, my community have a desire to serve Lord Krishna, but on the other hand, they need to solve a lot of problems in the material life, is right to preach them karma, misra, bhakti. What do you think about that?
Hey, Prabhu, Narad Muni has said in the first canto that what is medicine for one man may not be medicine for another. And Narad Muni himself in the Bhagavatam gives different solutions to different devotees. You will see in Narad Muni solutions. Narad Muni doesn't tell everybody Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Adi Anavritam Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti Uttama. So in the Bhagavatam, there is a particular term I'll try to find. So Prabhupada used to quote samsiddhim labhate nara, sve sve karmani nirata samsiddhim labhate nara. That actually progress means to be steadfast in your position. To be steadfast in your position according to your adhikar. That is actually progress. And regress is to do something which is beyond your adhikar. So different people are situated in different levels of adhikar. First and foremost, brahmacharya. You mentioned about brahmacharya. Most people do not understand what is brahmacharya. Most people don't have an iota of understanding of what brahmacharya is all about. Many people think brahmacharya means I will suppress my senses till the end of my life. I will conquer my senses. And thank you, Dhāmeśvara for quoting that verse. You can see 11:21 too. Yes, most people think brahmacharya is a means of conquering the senses and attaining mastery over the senses. Our acharyas have thoroughly refuted this particular idea of brahmacharya. There is an essay by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur on brahmacharya. And I would very much encourage devotees who are in his parampara or not in his parampara to kindly read through that essay where he speaks about spurious, false and true brahmacharya. This essay is called Vatsasur. Sometimes it is just Batasur, but that's a spelling mistake. Vatsasur. Vatsasur is one of the demons slain by the boy Krishna. So he's a Vatsasur is one of the demons slain by the boy Krishna. He represents evils that are peculiar to boyhood. The neophyte is extremely susceptible to such evils. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says they cannot be gotten rid of except by the mercy of Krishna. So very clearly Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke about brahmacharya. And he says that the scriptures say it is not in the power of man to ensure immunity of boys and girls from the blight of precocious sensuousness except by the means of service. So except for the service of Krishna, you cannot escape sense enjoyment in the material world. He very clearly says in this statement. And then he criticizes that false brahmacharya. The puritanic ideal of God, he's speaking about the church, is a conception which owes its origin to persons who are elderly, though honestly enough anxious to establish kingdom of God on this earth. He's speaking about the church. But if you scratch the thin coating on surface of their sage and sober scheme, you will only detect the rotten arrangement for securing the maximum of sensuous enjoyment for those very children who are brought up in this virtuous way. So he's basically saying that in the Christian church, when small boys are told that you should not engage in sense enjoyment, that is because in future you can have a good family, you can have many children, and finally you can go to heaven. So finally, it's nothing, just extended sense enjoyment. Right now, you become a nice celibate so that later you can go to heaven. Or right now, you become a nice celibate so that later in family life you can have many children. If the child is allowed to spoil his health in boyhood, these righteous people think he will not be in a position later to enjoy the legitimate pleasures of a grown-up man. So this is what he says. And he says this spurious brahmacharya, this false brahmacharya ideal is misconceived by its worldly supporters and embodies this puritanic outlook. The scriptures indeed enjoin that everyone should serve Godhead from the womb. This is the real meaning of brahmacharya. So he is very, very straightforward about what brahmacharya is. And finally, he says something which each and everyone must understand. No mundane consideration can form any part of spiritual training or conduct. It is not a spiritual affair to be even able to control one's material carnal desires. It's a very important statement. It is not a spiritual affair to be able to control one's material desires, carnal desires, sex desires. Such self-control is indeed automatically produced by the awakening of the soul. Finally, he says, if brahmacharya means a method of gaining moral power, it is wholly a mundane affair and is of no concern to the soul. But it is actually obstructive of the spiritual well-being of the soul. So there are many people who become brahmacharis just to become morally superior to others. He says it is obstructive to the spiritual progress of those people. So there is a lot that he has to. I mean, I could go on and on about this particular, but I don't want to. I risk upsetting quite a few opinions by that. I don't want to do that because some of the essays of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they can upset certain individuals, and I don't want to upset sensitivities of individuals. But those who are interested, they should read the article Vatsasur by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It is sometimes often mispronounced as Batasur, but it Vatsasur or Batasur, but actually is speaking about the demon Vatsasur, the calf demon who came amongst the boys, and is speaking of what it represents. So that is what it is.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for patiently waiting. Next we have Shamachandra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I just have a follow-up question to the response you have given to my previous question about these 5 types of liberation and the desires. So you said that, even a person having desire still can get liberated because those desires are spiritual, they're not like material desires. And based on different desires, you'll get different one of the 5 types of mukti. And in one of the slide you mentioned this sayujya is an exception. So my question is that, what about the desires of that living entities who is getting this sayujya mukti? Is that spiritual or is it material? Because we hear that, jnani, the desire to merge into Brahman is not spiritual, but it is actually a material desire. That's what we hear. I mean, if it's material, then how did he even get liberated in the first place? Right? I mean, and if he has to take that birth again, then where is the karma to take birth again?
The thing is, Srila Rupa Goswami did not include Sayujya in that categorization because Sri Rupa Goswami has to categorize into 2. Sukhaishwaryottara, Prema-sevottarā. In impersonal liberation, there is no Sukh and Aishwarya of Vaikuntha, and there is no Prema and Seva. So Rupa Goswami removes that one type of liberation from the 5 and says up to 4 types of liberation. They can be categorized into Sukhaishwarya, Uttara and Prema-sevottarā. Impersonal liberation Sayujya cannot fall in that category because there is no conception of service in that. Some people say it's a material desire. It's not a desire for material enjoyment. Impersonal liberation is not a desire for material enjoyment. It is not a desire for, because material enjoyment forces you to take birth in the material world. If it was a material desire, the impersonal yogi should have taken birth again. It's neither a desire to serve the Lord in Vaikuntha. It is a desire for self-pleasure through extinguishing one's material existence. That is what it is.
Yeah, can a living entity fall back from that stage?
That's where we have, we reach a place where it is, where you may find some different statements being made by different authorities. So,
Okay.
but I will tell you what Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan has said in the Vedanta Sutra, that no matter which sort of liberation you get, whether you get it through Gyan or you get it through Bhakti, no matter which sort of liberation you get, you will not come back to the material world. I am giving the opinion of Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan here because the devotees from various institutions here, and he is the common authority for all the Gaudiya Vaishnava institutions. Where does he say that? He says that in the Brahma Sutra Karika Bhashya. I will specify where he says that in his Karika Bhashya to the final Brahma Sutra, final Sutra of Vedanta Sutra. He says this. I am sharing my screen. Kindly read the this is the verse which Sri Baldev Vidyabhushan composed, Ye Prapta Bhakti Vittibhyam. Kindly read the translation, Prabhu.
Yeah, the Shruti says that those who have attained either the personal or impersonal form of the Supreme Lord through bhakti or jnana remain eternally in supreme bliss and never return again in this ocean of suffering caused by repeated birth and death.
Right. So here it is an impersonal form. There is no form to the impersonal. It should say impersonal feature. Either the personal or impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord. Personal you attain through bhakti, impersonal you attain through jnana. But they remain eternally in supreme bliss and they never return. So this is what Sri Baldev Vidyabhushan clearly says in his commentary. There may be differences of opinion given by other acharyas, and there may be reasons why they said like that. But this is the common understanding in the Sampradaya. Right?
Can I just ask one question, Prabhu? Is it okay?
Sure, why not?
Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is this verse, right? Jivara Swarup Krishna Nitya Das. So the Das, again, when you say constitutional position, some devotees say that Das doesn't mean that it has to be like an active principle. It can also include an inactive principle, and that is Ayujam. Or sometimes I see like an example of flower hanging in a temple. The flower is doing nothing, but still it's doing some service, right? I mean, something like that.
Jivera Swarupa Hai Krishnera Nitya Das. The Swarup of the Jiva is that every Jiva is potentially a servant of Sri Krishna. Every Jiva is potentially a servant. Because why? Some Jivas end up becoming parents, some Jivas end up becoming lovers, some Jivas end up becoming friends. So how do we make sense of the statement that all Jivas are servants? All Jivas are potentially servant. And service is the basis of all the relationships, that is understood. but not all jivas exactly become das or situated in dasyaras. So different jivas have different tendencies, but all are potentially, because the basis of all relationships is dasya. All jivas are potentially servants of Sri Krishna. Although practically in day-to-day life, they may not be executing their respective, seva with Sri Krishna. Some may be in the material world. So, but potentially each and every jiva is a servant of Sri Krishna. That's how it should be taken.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Next we have Mangesh Prabhu.
Am I audible?
You have to speak a little louder. I'm not able to hear you clearly.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, now clear?
Yeah.
Prabhuji, you may currently our discussion is going on regarding Prema-Aishwarya and Sukha Aishwarya Uttara and Prema-Sevottarā. So in that, Prabhuji, you mentioned like one can go from Sukha Aishwarya Uttara to Prema-Sevottarā when he gets the association of Premi devotee.
That is before liberation. Sukha is itself a liberation. Prema-Sevottarā is itself a type of liberation. But before they attain these two types of liberation, there is a chance that their tendencies may change. But these two are
my
types.
Question.
Yeah.
My question is like that: if somebody doesn't have this association of Premi devotee like that, and one is intellectually convinced, like seeing the reciprocation of Bhagwan, like how Bhagwan is reciprocating with Brajavasis, and how he's reciprocating, like you gave the example of Padma, the wife of Maharaj Ugrasen. So his reciprocation are more intimate with Brajavasis. One develop intellectual attraction for that, and he tries for developing Prema-Sevottarā liberation. So does it possible, Prabhuji?
How will he learn the art of executing Prem Seva? Through his intellect?
And that is only I want to ask. He
cannot
developed the attraction.
He may have initial attraction, but the bhajan paddhati has to be taught by a guru. That is what it is.
Does it possible by a holy name, because chanting holy names?
Prabhuji, the holy name is given at the time of Diksha by Guru. The secrets of the holy name are revealed by Sadhu Sangha is the birthplace of all sorts of bhakti. There is a praman for that. Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula Haya Sadhu Sangha. Where is that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita? Yeah. I am sharing the screen. Here it is. CC Madhya 22.83. Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula Haya Sadhu Sangha. Krishna Prema Janmete Ho Puna Mukhya Anga. Please read the translation, Prabhu.
Cause of devotional service to Lord Krishna is association with advanced devotees. Even when one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, association with devotees is still most essential.
The second part, the second sentence is your answer. Even if through your intellect somehow you have awakened an attraction to the mood of the Brajavasis, association with devotees is still most essential.
Yes.
So that is, maybe in a rare exceptional case, you may
Yes.
not need anything.
And yes, Prabhuji, got the point.
Yeah, but maybe in a very rare exceptional case, 1 out of a million may not need anything, but general case is what is specified in the Charitamrita.
And Prabhuji, regarding this, more that one may have a desire to practice devotional service, but according to his svabhava, which he got by his previous karma, his body and mind, according to that, he's serving the Lord, practicing devotional service. Does this fall in which category, Prabhuji, among these two?
If his previous swabhav is Prema-sevottarā, it falls in Prema-sevottarā. If his previous swabhav is Sukha-ishvara-uttara, it falls in Sukha-ishvara-uttara. Previous is what is unseen. Previous is unseen.
Okay.
That is why it is called as adrishta.
No,
In previous life, if he has association with a premi sadhu, then that will impact his bhakti in this life.
that previous about material swabhav.
Prabhu,
And not spiritual previous swabhav, material spiritual swabhav.
how do you distinguish between, how do you distinguish whether in previous lives you have had sadhu sangha or not? Does it come in two different packages? It becomes a part of your nature, right? What sadhu sangha you have had in previous lives.
Yes, yes.
You in your previous life,
Mm.
you met a sadhu who was very calm and patient. As a result of that, in your next life, in your material dealings, you are calm and patient. How do you distinguish between that? It affects your nature in its entirety. It doesn't stay in two different packages. But it most importantly, it affects the way you take to bhakti in this life. The way you take to bhakti in this life is affected by your previous sadhu sangha. That is what we call adrishta, unseen factors, which you cannot know at this point of time.
Prabhuji, when we have this...
Can we come back to you, Mangesh?
Yes.
Thanks so much. Next we have Omkar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Pranam.
Okay.
Prabhuji, I had a question about that point where you were mentioning that, like you were making a point, like devotees generally are stressed about getting up early in the morning to perform the sadhana. So I was like the stress which we have for that. So there was a parallel example which I was thinking about, like in a different case, where a person who wants to attain the prema seva of Bhagwan, and for that he wants to get up early, or let's say whatever he needs to do that. So there is a stress in that factor also. So will that stress will be the same which the other devotees experiencing?
That's called exciting eagerness. That's not called stress. You don't stress about it. Another thing, such type of bhakti is not practiced in masses where you are eager for prema. I've already said that Vaidhi Bhakti is practiced in masses and Rag Bhakti is practiced privately. I'll ask you a simple question. Before clocks were invented, at what time did devotees wake up?
Basically, when they had the desire to serve Krishna. That would be the easiest answer I could give.
Yeah, but there's no alarm clock. Alarm clocks are a product, maybe alarm clocks came to India how many? 100 years ago? 150 years ago, max. You know, before 150 years, how would Indian devotees in India wake up every morning?
Like chirping of birds.
Chirping of birds is much later than 4:30. 4:30 there is no chirping of birds.
Yes.
So what is the driving factor here? The Swiss clock or the eagerness for Krishna?
The eagerness to serve Krishna.
Wonderful. So the variety of bhakti which
for
you
a
are
devotee
speaking
who
about,
doesn't
the variety of bhakti which, see, we should all wake up early in the morning. That is the basic thing that we should do. We should all wake up. Somebody will say, oh, I was targeting waking up in the morning. No, I'm not targeting that. I'm targeting the fear that is associated with it. I'm not targeting the practice of waking up in the morning. I'm targeting the fear that is associated with it. We all should wake up. Why 4:30? Wake up at 3:30 in the morning. But wake up out of an excitement to serve Bhagwan out of prema. That's the main point to be, portrayed. And previously, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what time did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wake up? It is Udilo Aruna Purava Bhage, Dvijamani. When the sun was almost about to rise, that time Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to wake up sometimes. That's mentioned in Bhakti Vinod Thakur's song. Why? Because previous night there was late night kirtan, so everybody slept late, everybody woke up late. No harm in that. But if one is thinking, oh, now I'm not going to go back to Godhead because I did not wake up before 6 o'clock. Oh, I could not finish my japa before 8 o'clock. Oh, I could no. So you are motivated by a very lower form of emotion, which is called as bhaya. And this is not the emotion of somebody who wants to attain Raganuga Bhakti. That is the answer to your query.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji. So I'll take over. Dhāmeśvara Mahāprabhu messaged me.
Sure.
We'll go to Madhav Tripathi, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I just want to clarify one thing. Like the article which you showed from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to the answer of Kriparam Prabhu, there is one statement by him which says that the ascetic practices that have come to attach themselves to the conception were interpolated into scriptures in order to ensure worldly values by this form of empiric method. So what does he mean when he says interpolated into the scriptures? Can you like shed some
There
light
are
on this?
sometimes, what is actual brahmacharya is different, and what is portrayed as brahmacharya in scriptures by various so-called authorities and sages is different. Sometimes many recent authorities have given heightened emphasis to controlling the senses and have not mentioned the actual meaning of brahmacharya, that is service to Godhead. Therefore, by giving over stress on simply controlling the senses without any positive conception of service to Bhagwan, these recent authorities, by their commentaries, have pushed ideas that are detrimental to the spiritual growth of the sadhaka. That is what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wants to say. Traditional India, Vedic India, is a very different type of India where brahmacharya is not forced upon people. Brahmacharya is a very natural stage of one's life. Brahmacharya is actually an ashram, which begins at the age of 5 to 6 years, not at the age of 25 years. It begins at the age of 5 years. And that is what traditional, let me specify what traditional brahmacharya is about. It begins at 5 years of age. What sex desire does a 5-year-old boy have? Can you tell me? None. All his energy can be utilized directly in serving Bhagwan. Until he attains 15 to 20 years of age, his entire conception can be fixed in seva of Bhagwan, or can be fixed in Brahma Gyan if he is under an impersonalist guru. And then, because Brahma is his main focus, or Bhagwan is his main focus, therefore he is called a brahmachari. That is what the simple conception is. Come to this day, and then the brahmacharya ashram sometimes starting at 25 years of age. And then there are these heavy statements that you have to control your senses and this and that and everything. And then it causes lots of issues. So it has also caused issues in the past. There is a farman by the Raja of Jaipur. I saw it in a PhD study. There was a farman means an order by the king of Jaipur during the time of Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan. Anybody who has prematurely taken sannyas or vairagya wants to get married, I allow them to marry. They should get married peacefully, without fear of repercussions. Those orders were being issued by the king back in the day of Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan, and there was no internet and computers and God knows what. So now, so many more things are there, and our society has undergone a sex revolution, and five waves of feminism have taken over the society. And then you expect a person who is crossed 25 years of age will enter into the brahmachari ashram, and without any conception of service to Krishna, they'll be able to maintain the brahmacharya. Somebody is living in a fool's paradise, clearly. So that is why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is attacking that spurious idea of brahmacharya. All right.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
We'll go to Mangesh Prabhu again.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, for developing Prema-sevottarā, how to seek out the devotee association whose help we can take and develop Prema-sevottarā, how to search out.
So Prabhu, if you want to have Prema-sevottarā, that sort of association is only available by praying fervently to Bhagwan to help you come in contact with a guru, Shiksha or Diksha guru, who is themselves a Premi Bhakta. That is the easiest way. So my Shiksha guru, revered Shiksha guru, Shri Srimad Gaur Govind Maharaj, there is a book published, How to Find Guru, small booklet, How to Find Guru. So by finding a proper guru, everything will be done. That is the answer to your query.
And Prabhuji, is there any external characteristics of Prema-sevottarā and Sukha Aishwarya Uttara? Prabhuji?
The thing is,
we can see before liberation.
The thing is, the more you think I will try to control the situation, the more you will fail at it. Leave it to Bhagwan. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur often said that the more we try to judge a sadhu by our mechanisms, the more we are trying to project our qualities on him. It is better to let Bhagwan decide. We just give what we want to Bhagwan, submit to Bhagwan, and let Bhagwan decide what is good for us. Instead of trying to judge a sadhu, Bhagwan will send the sadhu. When Bhagwan sends a sadhu, that sadhu will contain not only what you asked for, but he will also contain what you did not ask for, but what you really needed. So ideally, you want that sort of a sadhu, not just a sadhu who fulfills your checklist. So that is what is most important.
Next, we have a question from Arvind Prabhu. Please go ahead. And Arvind Prabhu, do you? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. So my question is there Santras and Dasharas present in Shri Goloka Vrindavan Dham? I heard in a lecture where it says that Santras and Dasharas is not present in Goloka Vrindavan Dham because it gives an example also ki cows are in Vasaliras and trees are in Sakhiras. And so
all right,
can you throw some light on this?
We need to understand some technical concepts. There is something called as Sankularati. Sankula means mixed emotions. Some devotees have mixed rasas in them. That is called Sankularati. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given us the realization that in Goloka Vrindavan there is no Shuddha Shantaras. There is a mixture of Vatsalya and in the entities who have Shantaras also. So that idea has been given to us by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but the original idea is by Sri Rupa Goswami. There is something called as Sankula Rati, mixture of ratis, mixture of two rasas. So we need to understand that some devotees can have a mixture of two rasas, where one rasa is prominent, another rasa is not prominent. Uddhav is also a mixture of Dasya and Sakhya. So this is an example of Sankula Rati. So in Vraja also there are many entities who have Sankula Rati. And that is what Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has said. That is the answer to your query.
So the bhakti of Shri Goloka Vrindavan Dham is only attained by the Raghunav Bhakti.
Yes.
All this.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Questions and another amazing session. So many wonderful points you covered, and each session is like I have said, I think before, just a treasure cove of further immersion and analysis and thought and understanding. So thank you, Prabhuji. Someday I will go through this, very slowly and carefully, and probably, the understanding will deepen by many orders of magnitude.
Thank you,
so
Prabhu, for kindly being here. Thank you to Dhāmeśvara Prabhu also. I'm very thankful to each and every one of you for kindly being here. I couldn't do this without all of you. So thank you so much. All of you are the success of the presentation. Thank you so much.
There is
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I'll invite all the devotees to mute.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
For wonderful class.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Hari Parsha Prabhu. We love you.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
You're truly a blessing in our lives.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare
Krishna has sent
Krishna.
you to all of us.
Prabhu ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare
Radhe Shyam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
All right. Looking forward to see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you.